Hello students. Today we are going to do a chapter from unit number 3 by the name The Last Leaf. The Last Leaf is a story by O. Henry which revolves around two young women, Sue and Johnsy, who were struggling artists and who were living together. Johnsy becomes ill with an attack of pneumonia, and the doctor predicts that she will live only if she has got the desire, the will to live. Johnsy becomes obsessed with the falling of ivy leaves from a vine which she can see from her window. And she feels that each time a leaf falls, her life is becoming shorter. She is obsessed with the falling of the leaves so much so that her life, she feels, they will run out the day the last leaf of the vine falls. Now Sue is a very good friend of Johnsy. She takes good care of her and she is worried about this obsession of Johnsy. She meets Mr. Behrman, who stays on the ground floor and decides to take his help. She tells him about Johnsy's imagination, and Behrman is actually shocked and surprised to hear it. Now, what happens after that? Do all the leaves fall, and does Johnsy die, or does she live? If she lives ahead, why does she live? We are going to learn all these things from the chapter The Last Leaf. So let's read. In the poorer parts of New York, there was a colony where many struggling artists lived. Among them were Sue and Johnsy. They had come to New York from different parts of the United States. When they met, they found that they shared the same interest and they became friends. They shared a flat and set up a joint studio, trying to earn a living through art. So you see, the first paragraph tells us that Sue and Johnsy are from different parts of United States. So the story takes place actually in United States. And who are they? They are struggling artists. What is a struggling artist? An artist who is, working very hard to earn a living. Now they both came to New York, and they found they had the same interests, so they became friends. Generally it happens when you share the same interest, it is easy to make friendship. So they shared a flat and set up a studio. What is a studio? Studio is a place where an artist works. Okay. So they were working from that studio and trying to earn a living through art. Okay. Let's read ahead. Johnsy was small, thin, and not very strong. After spending a few months in New York, she became ill with pneumonia. In those days, it was not easy to cure pneumonia patients. Though Sue looked after her well, Johnsy showed no signs of improvement. One day, the doctor told Sue that Johnsy had one chance in 10, and that chance is for her to want to live. He said, "Your little lady has made up her mind that she is not going to get well." He told Sue that medicines alone did not help if the patient did not wish to live. Here we can see the description of what Johnsy is like. She was small, thin, and constitutionally not very strong. So she got affected. Once she was in New York, she got affected because of an attack of pneumonia. What is pneumonia? It's a condition where lungs are infected and pus is formed. Okay. And in those days, when the story has happened, pneumonia was not considered easy to cure. Now, Sue, as a good friend, she was taking all due care of John C. But the doctor told that chances that John C will live are very meager. Why? Because according to the doctor, John C had lost the will, the desire, the wish to live. So the doctor said to Sue that medicines alone are not going to help. The desire to live is an important factor for a patient to get well, which John C was not having. Let's read ahead. That day, John C just lay in bed without making any sound or movement. First, Sue thought that she had fallen asleep, but then she noticed that John C was looking out of the window and was counting something again and again, in a very low voice, almost a whisper. Sue too looked out of the window, but there was nothing to see. Only an old ivy vine, gnarled and decayed at the roots, climbed halfway up the brick wall. The cold breath of autumn had taken away most of the leaves. Only the skeleton branches were left clinging to the bricks. So, from these paragraphs, we come to know that John C has become very weak and she is lying in the bed. And at first, Sue felt that she had fallen asleep. But then she realized that she was not asleep. Who was not asleep? John C. She was actually saying something in low voice. What she was doing? She was actually counting something. Her voice was so low that it seemed like a whisper. So what she was counting? She was, seeing an ivy vine from the window. What is an ivy vine? Ivy vine is a strong creeper with green leaves. And generally, such kind of vines are used to cover the wall or a shed. And how was that ivy vine? It was decayed. Decayed meaning what? Rotten or spoiled. And it was gnarled. Gnarled meaning what? Twisted. Twisted, and especially because it had become old. And cold breath of autumn. So how was the climate like? The season was autumn and it was very cold. And as you know, during such season, usually trees shed their leaves. So, only skeleton branches were left. Meaning what? Skeleton branches means bare branches without leaves were left. Okay, let's read ahead. What is it, dear? Asked Sue. 6, said John C. They are falling faster now. 3 days ago, there were almost 100. It made my head ache to count them. But now it's easy. There goes another one. There are only 5 left now. 5 what, dear? Leaves on the ivy vine. When the last one falls, I must go too. I have known that for 3 days. Didn't the doctor tell you? Oh, I have never heard such nonsense, said Sue. What have old ivy leaves to do with your getting well? And you used to love that wine so? Don't be silly. The doctor said that you had excellent chances of getting well. Take some broth now and let me get back to my work. So here in these paragraphs we come to know that John C is counting the leaves and they are falling. Not only are they are falling faster. As is clear from the counting of John C, she is saying almost 100 or so leaves were there 3 days ago and now only 5 are left. And from the conversation we come to know that she has associated her life with the falling of the leaves. She is saying one by one the leaves are falling and her life is also becoming shorter and shorter with the falling of leaves. And she says to Sue that when the last one falls, she is also going to go. Go means die. To that, Sue's reaction is clear. She is very much attached to John C. and she doesn't want to hear such nonsense from her. She makes it clear to her. She tells a lie to John C. that doctor has said that you had excellent chance of getting well, and then she gives her broth. Broth is what? A hot soup of meat or vegetables, something like that. So from this we can come to know that John C. Is very much loved by Sue. Sue is taking very good care of John C. and doesn't want her friend to die. Let's read ahead. But John C. just kept looking out of the window. There goes another. No, I don't want any broth. That leaves just 4. I want to see the last one fall before it gets dark. Then I will go too. John C., said Sue, will you promise me to keep your eyes closed and not to look out of the window until I am done working? I must hand those drawings in tomorrow. I need the light, otherwise I would have closed the window. I don't want you to keep looking at those silly ivy leaves. So here these paragraphs make it clear that John C. wants to look out of the window because she wants to see the last one leaf on the ivy vine fall. Because as I made it clear, as I told you, she is saying that the last leaf falls and John C. says she will also go out of this world. But Sue says that promise me, tells her John C. to close her eyes. She says I would have closed the window also, but she had some work and she needed light for that, so she had to keep the window open. She tells her dear friend John C. to keep her eyes closed and not to look at the falling ivy leaves. Tell me as soon as you have finished, said John C., closing her eyes, because I want to see the last one fall. Try to sleep, said Sue. I must call Behrman up to be my model for the old man that I am drawing. I will not be gone a minute. We see from these lines the same thing. John C. is repeating the same thing again. I want to see the last leaf fall because I told you, she has got that in mind. And Sue is again saying, go to sleep, go to sleep. Now here comes another character of the story, that is Mr. Behrman. Who is he? He is an old man from the same building who stays in the ground floor. He is also a painter, but he has not made a success in his field. So let's see what happens ahead. Now Sue wants Mr. Behrman to be her model because she is going to draw an old man. So she goes and calls Mr. Behrman. Old Behrman was a painter who lived on the ground floor, but he was a failure in art. For 40 years he had wielded the brush, but had not made any money. He had been always about to paint a masterpiece, but had never yet begun it. For several years he had only made a few paintings. He earned a little by serving as a model to the young artists in the colony, who could not afford other models. He always talked of his coming masterpiece. So from this paragraph we come to know that Mr. Behrman is an old painter and he has been doing the painting job for almost 40 years. And he is a very skillful painter. Wielded the brush means painted well, painted skillfully. He had always been, he always used to talk of painting a masterpiece. What is a masterpiece? Masterpiece is a exceptionally beautiful piece of art. Outstanding work of art. But he had not yet made it. And what was he doing presently? He was, serving as a model to the young artists. And that way he earned his living, earned his money. Because the young artists couldn't pay the models. So he stood as a model, and naturally, because he was an old person and from the field of art, did not charge much. And what did he always talk of? He talked of his coming masterpiece. As I told you, masterpiece is an outstanding work of art of an artist. Okay. So Behrman wanted to paint a masterpiece. Let's read ahead. Sue told Berman about John C's fancy. Old Bearman was shocked that anyone could have such idiotic imaginings. What? He cried. Are there people in the world foolish enough to die because of leaves dropping off from a vine? I have not heard of such a thing. Why did you allow this thought to enter her brain? So Sue tells about John C's fancy. Fancy is what? Imagination. What is John C's imagination? I am sure you know that the leaves from the ivy vine are falling, and when the last leaf will fall, even John C will die. So when Sue tells this to Mr. Behrman, he's shocked and surprised. He says that how can anyone have such idiotic means stupid imaginings, and it was a surprise for him that such foolish people also existed who could associate their life with the falling of leaves. And he's telling Sue that how she being your friend, how did you allow this to enter her brain? You should have taken effort to drive this thought out from her mind. So you see, we have seen the story of Sue, John C, and the third character has also come on the scene, that is Behrman, and we have already seen the fourth character, the doctor. Now what happens? Does Behrman help Sue to help John C? Does John C survive? Does the last leaf fall? And what happens ahead? That we are going to see in the next lecture. Okay? That's all for the day. Thank you.